Hello everyone and welcome to Monza. This is another round of the 2022 GPVWC Formula Sprint 1 Championship, round 12 to be precise, of 16. We're back from the summer break. We've had 4 weeks off. The drivers have had a chance to relax. Some of them would have been putting in laps and laps of practice over that time to make sure that they're ready for this round. Others would have just been putting their feet up and waiting for it all to start up again. But here we are back, and the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza is not for the faint of heart. It's known as the Temple of Speed. It's the fastest race circuit that there is on pretty much any Grand Prix calendar, and with GPVWC it is no exception. It's going to be one where you need to know your braking points, and it changes depending on whether you're running in traffic, whether you're on your own, and whether you're on a qualifying lap. Speaking of such, we have 6 minutes remaining in. Whoopsie daisy, that's a multiforce car going for a big slide, and a great save actually to keep it out of the barriers. That car will live to drive another lap. There you see the times. We've had just under 10 minutes of qualifying so far, and Jake Dennehan is currently leading a TTS off 1-2 with Darius Andre in second place, and Tom Stevens and Noah McGorgy, who collided at the last round 4 weeks ago. I know it might be difficult to remember, but that happened, and funnily enough, there was no action in that instant, so we don't have either of those drivers holding penalties coming into this round. Ada Erkan is currently 5th in the order, and then you see the rest on the left-hand side of your screen there. And Owen apparently does have a penalty. My apologies. It is not showing up on my disciplinary page, so it's been posted somewhere completely different. That is why. Okay, so it looks as if, let me just get that up to, yes, to decide that. And it does look like we have a completely separate DC decisions to the sheet to the one that I saw. My apologies. I will check that in a second, and then get you an actual list of the penalties that are going to be held coming into this round. Here we're looking at Toby Davis. He is substituting in place of Damien Kardash this weekend. Damien himself not able to make this race for whatever reason, but Toby Davis is a very mature driver, a very fine hand when it comes to racing cars. He's actually raced cars in real life, raced a Scirocco, I believe, in the VW Cup a few years ago. Might have been a Golf. He might tell me off for that after the race. And there he goes, up to P6 in the order. Very, very nice. He also won the first race of Formula Sprint 2 just 2 days ago, as he gets knocked off his perch by Amari Watson there, who goes up into 6th place. Here's Darius Andre attempting to go quicker. And I now do have the penalties from the last round in front of me. So apparently there were a couple of track limits penalties, it seems, that were given out at the end of race 1. I don't believe that they affected the finishing order, but that incident that we saw between Tom Stevens, Moritz Kropp, Owen McGorgy, and potentially some more drivers as well, has resulted in a 10-place grid penalty for Owen McGorgy coming into this round. So although he's 4th in the order so far, if he qualifies there, he will be starting 14th for this race. Actually, ignore me on that, because apparently he also got a track limit penalty in that second race, meaning he has another place grid penalty. So it's actually 11 places in total that Owen McGorgy will be dropped. Who else has a grid penalty? I will just check over that quickly. Menno Klont was given a 30-second time penalty after the last round by the looks of things. And yes, okay, so that appears to be the lot. So it's Owen McGorgy that we have to look out for here as the driver who's going to be dropped down the order as it stands. Adrian Faber as well returns after having reached 0 license points and having to miss a round earlier on in the championship. So 2 minutes left in this session now, and that is a big lead that Jake Dennehan has on his lap. The two TCS off cars have now been split by Tom Stevens, who is in 2nd place in the standings. Stevens, the championship leader coming into this round, but I will talk more about the championship in the warm-up session. And for the time being, we will just focus on the laps taking place in this session. Here's McGorgy setting up for one final flying run. Philip Koenig is currently the top driver who's on a lap and improving, although actually Arda Erkan's first sector time was quicker than Philip's. Quite a spread out top 10 in this order compared to what GPVWC Formula Sprint 1 usually sees. And part of that is because the drivers aren't using slipstream for this. Normally at Monza you see drivers using their teammates to slipstream down the straights and to gain several miles per hour, but in this you cannot, because it is only single person qualifying. Effectively, there are several alternate dimensions loaded up at the same time, several alternate versions of the circuit, and everyone has their own clear bit of track to race on. Koenig completes the lap and does not improve. He appears to have dropped down in the final couple of sectors of that lap. Here's Maciej Heiler, and he goes P7, so improves. And Federico Rosso could potentially improve as well. And as we now have 30 seconds left on the timer, every lap now is crucially important, especially compared to earlier in this session. Darius Andre slightly down in the first sector, down on his personal best, and about a 10th down on what the leaders have done as well. In one of the 2 DRS zones of the lap, has the rear wing wide open, and he is not going to improve in this session. So Darius, and he's going to have a crash, yep, heavily into the wall, and Darius Andre's session would have been over there whether he'd liked it or not. Arda Erkan improving in the first sector, improving on his time. You see the plus if you look down to the bottom right, but that is only in addition to the leader's time. In comparison to his own time, he is up, and so is Owen McGorgy, although obviously McGorgy has that penalty hanging over his head, and it's Arda Erkan who is currently looking like he will start on the 2nd row of the grid. Qualifying matters less here than at every other race circuit, but you still want to qualify on the front row of the grid, just in case, if only to keep out of the carnage that could take place in the first couple of corners. And Erkan very tight into the second part of the corner there, trying to minimize the amount of track that he has to go. but he loses out in the final sector there and sees the checkered flag. Here's Owen McGorgy across the line, and there is an improvement for Owen, but he stays P4 and thus will start P15 at best. And Toby Davis, P7, despite a first sector time that was up on the leaders. And Moritz Kropp improves. Ziabinski crashes, so he will be 19th at best. And that appears to be it for the drivers who are going to be competitive in this session. Gerrit de Vries does not improve on that final time, and now everyone has seen the checkered flag. So it is Jake Dennehan on pole position here, and it's a big pole position as well. 0.3 of a second in it between him and Tom Stevens. It's going to be difficult for him to break away from Tom Stevens and get out of that slipstream chain, especially at this circuit, but that is what he needs to do from that position. Darius Andre is third. McGorgy is fourth, although will more likely be 15th. Then it's either Erkan, Amari Watson, Moritz Kropp, Toby Davis, Maciej Heiler, and Philip Koenig. Now, while you look at the rest of the order, a quick reminder of how the championship stands. Tom Stevens won the first race at Belgium last time out. It was his third victory in a row, and he now leads the championship by 24 points over Owen McGorgy. So look out for McGorgy coming from 15th on the grid and see what he can do there to minimise the damage in this championship. This is a real opportunity for Tom Stevens to try to pull away a race-winning margin in the championship with 4 races to go, or 4 rounds to go after this one. Jake Dennehan is third in the championship, although, as I said, on pole position today, so he is also looking to gain. Greg Hamming, 4th in the championship coming into this. 5th is Moritz Kropp, and then it's Amari Watson, Darius Andre, Alexander Ragosa, Damien Kardash, and Jason Muscat. But like I said before, Damien Muscat is not here in this round, so we don't have all of our top 10 championship contenders. So that's that as far as the top 10 in the championship go. In terms of the teams, you've got to look out for Nocturne. They are absolutely running away with it at this point, with both Moritz Kropp and Tom Stevens having several victories to their name, and Ruven Machedi getting that one victory in Silverstone as well. TCS are second in the championship and having a much better second half to the season than their first part. HGP are third in the team's championship, and then it is Nova Sim Racing and Gallery 82 Motorsports making up the rest of the top 5 in that. Now, that was it for qualifying, and considering it is only me in the commentary booth, and you probably don't want to hear me rabbit about anything and everything, I'm going to go for about a 5-minute break. And then we will be back in just a few minutes to see the start of the first of 2 races here at Monza. So don't go anywhere, and we will be back for then. Welcome back everyone to GPVWC 2022. This is still round 12 of the FS1 Championship from the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza in Italy. If you can guess which country this race was from the title. This, of course, the Temple of Speed, one of the fastest circuits. Slipstreaming is going to be everything here. The drivers have got to hope that they've got their setups absolutely balanced between grip in the corners and straight line speed, because the straight line speed is so important. But if you can't control the car in the corners, then you have absolutely nothing. We have just under a minute now until we see the checkered flag on this warm-up session, and then we will be able to get going for the formation lap. And then the first of two races, it's going to be 26 laps. There is a mandatory pit stop. There are 2 compounds of tyre. The top 10 qualifiers have to start on the tyres that they qualified on, whereas everyone else has a free tyre choice. Oh, sorry, as I get the hiccups. And and there's a crash there for one of the cars in the second Lesmo. That was Owen McGorgy, actually, who can't afford to do that in the race. So at least he's got that out of the way in the warm-up session there. 3 artificial chicanes on this circuit, 1 for each sector, and those are the overtaking opportunities, where if you can slipstream someone well enough on the straight and get yourself alongside, then you can outbrake them into those corners. The difficulty, which I found out the hard way in FS2 the other day, is that sometimes people really want to make it 3 wide because there's so much slipstreaming going on and so much overspeed that if there's 2 people fighting and another driver comes up on them, then they're not really going to hang back. They're often just going to go and make it 3 wide. And if that happens at the last minute, then the driver on the outside may not know that they have 2 drivers to their inside, and sometimes that can result in a little bit of a sandwich effect. And hopefully we don't get too much of that today. These drivers should have a little more spatial awareness than some of the drivers in FS2. But Monza is a notoriously difficult one as far as racecraft is concerned. You have to be so strategic here. You have to plan what you're going to do so far in advance. Because even if you do make an overtake, it's so easy to just allow your opponent to go sailing straight back through on the next straight. The session has now ticked over. The drivers have 1 minute in order to get their cars out onto the grid. Everything that they've done to their setups is already finalized. It was finalized as soon as they went out for their first flying lap in qualifying. Everything was put into parc fermé conditions except for the brake pressure and bias, and the amount of fuel that goes in the car as well. Absolutely everything else was completely frozen at the time and remains frozen. If you want to change it, you have to start from the pit lane. 29 drivers making their way out onto the track now, so we're missing 1. But 29 drivers still a very good amount of a very good number of cars to have for a motor race. This track is going to feel extremely busy when the race gets underway. So here goes the formation lap now. Let's take another look through the starting order for this race. And apparently the rain has started to fall as we do it. Yes, my game is saying 5% rain. Thank you for pointing that out, Szymon. And the number is going up. So as the drivers head away on the formation lap on their slick tyres, the rain has started to come down. So here is the provisional starting order. We've got Jake Dennehan on pole, Tom Stevens second, then Darius Andre and Arda Erkan. The rain is now at 10%, by the way, so keep an eye on if anyone's going to dive in for inters before this lap is up. Amari Watson 5th place, then it's Moritz Kropp, Toby Davis and Maciej Heiler. Those are the top 8. Then Philip Koenig, George Whitehouse, Frank Hamming and Mike Quint. And I'll run you through tyres in a bit, but I have a feeling it's going to change by the time we actually get to the start of this race. Stavros Mercedes, P13th, and Federico Rosso. Owen McGorgy, second in the championship, starting from 15th due to the crash last time out. And then 16th is Mirko Lucchini. Then it's Menno Klont, Fabian Bali, Maurice Brachan, and Mateusz Ziebinski. And apparently we've lost Rafael Lukaszewski, so even though you see him there in P24, he will not be starting the race. Alexander Agosa, P21, then Gerrit de Vries and Kasper Mikulak. And unfortunately, Lukashevsky is not going to be starting. Then Perseus Miram, Vincent Gutt, Adrian Faber, and Jerry Van Bussel. And in the last grid position is Dylan Tarbaton. And the race director's just posted an interesting message in the chat. He says, if you're going to pit to change tyres, you must escape and then go out again. There will not be time to make an actual pit stop towards the end of the lap. So everyone who is going to the grid now is committing to starting on slick tyres. No surprise that the leaders are doing so. Some drivers further back are going to take risk. We've got Mateusz Jabinski in the pit. He was going to start 20th, and he looks to be the only car pitting for Inters right now. Fabian Ballius, the top driver on hard tyres, down in 18th position. So almost, and Erkan pits. Erkan is in the pits for Inters. Menno Klont comes in as well, but that is a big risk for Erkan, who was going to start 4th on the grid. Now look for the lights. When the 4 red lights go out, the race will begin, and we will have 26 laps worth of racing here at Monza. I think the server is going to take a little bit longer to register that we are in position to start the race, because there are a few people in the pit lane messing with things. The rain appears to have stopped at 11%, so it's still there, but it's persistent now, and only a light drizzle rather than a gradually increasing downpour or anything like that. They're still sitting on the grid. The lights are still not emerging. And there they are, here come the lights, and there is the rain. We're on board with Jake Dennehan, and it's go in Monza. The race is underway, and it's a slow getaway as they struggle to get traction off the line. Look for Tom Stevens coming through. He switches to the outside line as they head towards turn 1, and he's going to try to sweep through, and he's got the inside now, and as they head towards Curva Grande, they're still side by side for the lead. Little Schmozzle further back. And Jake Dennehan is on the inside line. Jake Dennehan on the inside in the TTSOF racing car. Tom Stevens still up the inside now and has to back out of it. They both just about make the corner, but Stevens and Dennehan wiggling all over the road. There's some damage in the background, some people with lost wings, and there's some backwards pointing cars. And someone spinning across the escape road, trying to avoid it all and failing. I think the majority of cars have got through with relatively minor damage. Here is Jabinski on the intermediate tyres. What a crazy start we've had to this race. Kasper Mikulak has no front wing, so Mikulak will be forced to pit and will presumably gamble for Inters. The Inter drivers are making up positions. The intermediate drivers are making up positions on this opening lap of the race, and McGorgy's lost his rear wing. McGorgy's had an incident out there somewhere. Meanwhile, Andre's up to second. Andre's about to take the lead, is he? He's getting closer to his teammate, and Davis has lost his front wing. So we've got carnage on the opening lap, as expected in these conditions. Dennehan does maintain the lead from Davis, and pits. Jake Dennehan comes into the pits at the end of the first lap. He will regret, and someone's in the wall. That looked like it was one of the newer cars, and side by side for the lead. Tom Stevens is on the outside line, heading towards turn 1, and Darius Andre maintains the lead. But surely these drivers will have to pit now. And the driver who hit the wall, I think, was Dylan Tarbaton, who's in the pits now. And as are a bunch of other drivers, everyone from 19th down are in the pit lane. So the top 18 stay out. Some of them started on intermediate tyres, some of them did not. Could we see the tyre graphic, if that's okay, Szymon? I want to see who the top driver on Inters is. It's Arda Erkan in 13th position, just ahead there. And Hamming gets past Kropp, so Hamming is now up into 3rd position in this race. Ziabinski and Klont gets past Gutt, so Klont now up past Vincent Gutt as well. There's yellow flags out there as drivers continue to struggle in these treacherous conditions. Perseus Miram went straight across the first chicane. Fabian Bali is on full wet tyres, as is Dylan Tarbaton. And Owen McGorgy is last of the runners after losing his rear wing on the opening lap of the race. This is one of the most entertaining starts to a race. that I've ever seen in GPVWC. The rain started coming down at just the right moment to give us an absolute cracker of a race. So as it stands now, Darius Andre leads the race and pits. So Andre comes in, Stevens comes in, Hamming takes the lead. Frank Hamming leads this race now. And Musadis is second. George Whitehouse goes through into third position. Now, an interesting quirk of this race is that all of the drivers who have pitted for inters or wet tyres will not have to use 2 compounds of tyre in this race. They can use a singular compound and they can run as far into the race as they would like. I've just looked back at what happened to Magorki. He was hit from behind by Kasper Michalak on the opening lap of the race. That was why Michalak had no front wing and why Magorki had no rear wing. And it looked to be through no fault of Magorki, so a big shame for him there. Now, Darius Andre has come out in P11. He's ahead of... He's behind... He's quite significantly behind Arda Erkan. And the top driver on wet tyres, full wet tyres, is Darius Andre. So, and Quint's out. Mike Quint has retired from the race as we speak. And Andre passes Stevens. He goes through... as Stevens has stayed on slick tyres. Tom Stevens is still on slick tyres. No, he's on inters. Sorry, my screen hadn't updated itself, but he is on intermediate tyres, whereas Andre is on the full wets out there. And I think that may have been a disconnection for Mike Quint, because I don't think I saw him having an accident as we speak. But no, I think he did have an accident, sorry, because he... As I switched to his view, he had no rear wing, and he just aquaplaned. It was through Curva Grande, which is a place where you never lose control, except in conditions like this. He aquaplaned off the road and smashed into the wall, and it is definitely too wet for drivers on slick tyres. Even though it says the track is only 10% covered in water, it's definitely too wet now. George Whitehouse in the pits, Federico Russo in the pits, Mirko Lucchini in the pits. So Erkan is up to third, and the top driver on intermediate tyres. Hamming and Mercedes still taking a risk out there on slicks and continuing on in that first and second position. And out of the pits now comes Federico Russo, a little behind George Whitehouse, who came in ahead of him, and Ragosa is going to get out in between the two of them. So Ragosa splits the two of them. Ragosa over the curbs, messed it all up there through the chicane, maybe under pressure from Jerry Van Bussel before he knows. Seems to have just about got away with it, but that was a bit of a jump over the curb there. And here comes Menno Klont now on Jerry Van Bussel. Goes to the outside line, and they touch. Oh, and Klont's going round. Moritz Kropp spins into the gravel. He's facing backwards. Can he rejoin safely? Come on, Moritz. There we go. That's good. And he does rejoin safely. But Kropp, who hasn't had much luck recently, has continued his run of form. And here's a replay. And this is Moritz Kropp. He went for the move on Van Bussel. And went to the outside. But unfortunately, there seems to have just been a little bit of a miscommunication between the two of them. Frank Hamming, meanwhile, is in the pits. So Frank Hamming pits from the lead, and Arda Erkan takes the lead of the race as we speak. Erkan goes through. The top driver on slick tyres is now Stavros Musadis, who Erkan passed relatively easily on that last lap. And now they have gained the advantage, because not only have they been gaining on Hamming and Brackham and all of those other drivers, but they have the clean air in front of them. Arda Erkan leads this race by 1.7 seconds now, and Menno Klont is about to pass Stavros Musadis. Takes a look to the inside of the second chicane of the lap. That's risky. This is where Kropp had his incident a lap ago. And Klont has extreme traction compared to Stavros Musadis' car. Puts the power down and gets the position, gets through to second place on the exit of the chicane. And Moritz Kropp has had another incident, and he misses his front wing. Moritz Kropp appears to have lost control down into the first chicane of the track. Someone else has gone off there. That was Maurice Brackham, so I think they may have made contact. And Morris was coming out of the pits, and Kropp's going to run into the back of them. There we go. Well, they say, I think they might argue over that one, because it is the responsibility of the driver coming out of the pits to rejoin safely into the traffic. However, he pulled over after the end of the pit blend line, and Moritz Kropp was the driver behind, didn't really provide for him in terms of the braking distance. So I think that was probably a bit of a 50-50 one as we saw it. And I think Stavros is the only driver out there still on slicks, and he is now in the pits. So after 6 laps of racing, decides better of it, and I'm not surprised whatsoever. Maurice Bracan is now out of this race, becomes our second retirement, along with Mike Quint, unless you count Rafał Lukaszewski, who retired on the formation lap, presumably due to a disconnection. So the order is Ercan, Klont and Denahan. Andre is the top driver on wet tyres. He's down in 7th position. And there you see, as Whitehouse passes Andre now, goes up into 7th position. But there you see the immense amount of places some of these drivers have gained as a result of the massive shuffle up of the order. Menno Klont is up 15 places from his starting position. An excellent job from the Multiforce driver. And he now chases Arda Ercan for the lead of this race. We're 6 laps in out of 26, and it's Ercan, Klont, Denahan, Stevens, Heiler, Ziobinski, Whitehouse, Andre, Hamming, and Ragosa. Some would call it a messed up order, but this is not due to luck. The drivers who are up there deserve to be up there as a result of not having spun off the road. And talking of spinning off the road, our third retirement is Kasper Michalak, as Kropp now returns from the pits, having put on a new front wing. But yes, Michalak lost his rear wing out there somewhere and decided to call it a day. I'm going to have a look back at exactly what happened in that one. It seems that DRS is still active, because as Michalak was going down that last straight there, he appeared to have his DRS flap open. And there you see it, look at that, DRS is open on the back of Merky Lucchini's car, so they have not disabled the DRS in this race. Lucchini is about to pass Koenig, is he? Oh, he's getting shown the outside line, that's risky through there, even though it might potentially be drier. And Michalak's incident was on the exit of the Ascari chicane. He lost on the 3rd apex and hit the wall. Hamming now side by side with Darius Andre. Andre's full wet tyres don't appear to be coming into their own just yet. And he will be keeping his fingers crossed for some more rain. Got to keep all his fingers on the steering wheel right now, though, because he was side by side in a precarious part of the circuit. Through goes Frank Hamming. Andre now down to 9th, and he is under pressure from Alexander Ragosa, who we are running on board with in this race. He goes up the inside line. And do they make it through? No, they don't. Over the curbs. And Darius Andre is going to have to give that place up. TCSF have a new sponsor for this race. And that is Camus. And I'm going to have to look up exactly what Camus do. They did post about it on their social media page. But it's always good to see sponsors and companies getting involved in sim racing. Apparently they make wheelbases, I presume sim racing wheels. So that is a valuable asset to the TCSF racing team. Federico Rosso, though, may be about to use his wheel to steer his way past Darius Andre's car in the slipstream. And as we've seen so far, in the DRS, because the DRS has not been disabled. Meanwhile, Arda Ercan gained quite a lot of time in the last couple of laps. The gap was 2 seconds when Klont got past Stavros Musadis, as Russell is about to make the move. But now the gap for the lead is 4.3 seconds, so it has extended. And Arda Ercan is very much at home in these conditions so far, and is doing an excellent job in this race. Russell not able to get past Darius Andre. I haven't checked YouTube chat all day, have I? Goodness me, this has been such a chaotic sequence of events in qualifying and then in the start of this race that I haven't had time to. I might not get time to now either, because Russo is still lining up a move, isn't he? All over the back of... and off goes Andre for the 2nd lap in a row. May not necessarily have to give that place up, but Russo looks as if he's going to get him anyway, so Federico Russo does now get up into 10th position as we speak. I've just noticed we've had a bit of turkey spam in the YouTube chat. A lot of people supporting Arda Erkan by putting some random turkey emojis. Good to see the support anyway. Arda Erkan is doing a wonderful job in this race. Szymon, my cameraman, saying that 10% rain at the start of formation lap is deadly on slicks. Yes, it was, and as we saw, it did not work out for the drivers who started on slicks. The best time to pit for slicks appeared to be on the formation lap, and Arda Erkan, remember, although it says on his graphic that he's only up 3 positions from his starting spot, he actually started from the pit lane, remember. So Arda Erkan there, despite leading this race in the early stages, came from the very back after starting from the pit lane. Okie dokie, so Jake Dennehan, a little slidey, but at least he's not on the same dud tyres as his teammate at this point. Adrian Faber in the pits now. And Faber still had his wings about him, so maybe this is going to be a race where we do see scheduled pit stops quite early, even for that. Yellow flags out there somewhere, very briefly. Little surprised to see Adrian Faber coming into the pits, because he wasn't one of the drivers who started on Inter, so that will be his second stop of the race. Unclear why. Dennehan is lining up Menno Clant. They've got a big gap back to Tom Stevens, actually. They've really been getting away in this race. Stevens came out right in the middle of the pack after his pit stop, as did these other drivers, but obviously Clant and Dennehan were able to get away. And on the straight, Dennehan will have an advantage, and he's going to go through on the inside, and does go through. Great stuff from Jake Dennehan to take second position in this race. The pole sitter, who had to pit at the end of the very first lap of the race, is recovering well and getting up towards his rightful position. Federico Russo is also about to make a move on Alexander Ragosa. And the inside line, despite these wet conditions, still looks to be the place to be, heading down into those first couple of corners. But Federico not able to go through as Watson fights with Vincent Gutt. This would by far be Arda Erkan's best result of the season so far, if he was to finish there, as we see more yellow flags out there somewhere. Fingers crossed it's not something major. But yeah, as I was saying, Erkan's best result previously was an 8th place in the first race at the Hungaroring. He's not been on the podium at all this season. And to be leading by 4 seconds, his heart must be going like the clappers at this point. I wonder if he just predicted this and put on a full wet setup. Of course, he did also start from the pit lane, which would have helped, but Arda's car seems to be so much more stable out there than some of his opponents. This is still his first season in GPVWC. His first race with us was the first race of the season. However, Jake Dennehan is the fastest driver out there right now. He is lapping in the late 138s there was his last lap, whereas Arda Erkan was in the low 140s, so that was about a second gain there from Jake Dennehan. I think we're going to have a battle for the lead on in a few laps. Russo lining up Ragosa again. Oh, there you see it. Suddenly on the timing screen, a lot of time just shot down, and Russo overshoots the corner, goes straight on and rejoins behind Alexander Ragosa, so Ragosa stays P9. Not even half of the way through this race yet. We may still see scheduled pit stops because hard or intermediate tyres are not necessarily hard enough to do the majority of the race by themselves. I think some people may try to extend it, but it would be risky. of course, the difficulty with intermediate tyres is that you do tend to be sliding around a bit more in the wet than you do in the dry. As Toby Davis there just had a little bit of an off in front of Arda Erkan, but Erkan's going to clear him safely. Does go through now. Davis unfortunately struggling and is a lap down and last of the runners, despite his victory in the FS2 championship the other day. Gerrit de Vries now in the pits as well, becomes our third driver to go a lap down. Still though, a very tense, exciting race, which looks to be getting even closer, especially up front. George Whitehouse now close to Maciej Hyler. Here are two drivers who we haven't seen much in this race. They've been running well, but quietly so. Haven't been involved in any battles, haven't made any mistakes, which is always a good thing. And as they pass the pit lane exit to start another lap, following each other nose to tail. And Whitehouse's teammate Owen McGorgy up to P17, still running in this race. Side by side there, little bit of contact between Musadis and Andre, and that's Amari Watson getting involved behind them. Since when is Amari Watson? That's not Amari Watson, that's a car who's a lap down. Sorry. I was about to say, since when has Amari Watson driven for Multiforce? But no, that's Jerry Van Bussel, who's running in 25th position there. So my apologies if I confused anyone. And that shows you just how much Darius Andre is struggling on those full wet tyres, because Jerry Van Bussel, despite being a lap down, is right over the back of him and almost touched Darius Andre there. May have actually touched him slightly through the Lesmers. Darius would do well to just give way to him right now. I am amazed that DRS is still active in this race. There are drivers out there on full wet tyres. Nobody is out there on slicks. And the game has not automatically disabled the use of the rear wing flap. There have been instances where in the Menno Klont's had an instance, sorry. Menno Klont has lost his rear wing out there somewhere and returns to the pit lane. And Klont, who was running right up there, has had some sort of an incident. Meanwhile, George Whitehouse is passing Maciej Hyler, but continue to watch this replay. We've caught it too late. Yeah, keep going back. I'm going to keep you updated on the Hyler-Whitehouse incident because they're still side by side. And Hyler maintains P4 just about up through the Curva Grande. We can potentially have a look at that after we've seen what happened to Menno Klont, who was running 6th before all of this happened. And his rear wing has already disappeared by that point, although it just seemed to miraculously disappear. So I think maybe the incident had... Yeah, it must have happened after this point. Loses it on the exit of the chicane, slams the arm coat, and the rear of his car was no match for that. And Hyler's made a mistake, sorry, let's go back to real time if we can, because Hyler makes a mistake and George Whitehouse has gone through. Well, we're seeing a replay of, this is earlier on in the lap, this is when Whitehouse and Hyler went side by side in the chicane, and Hyler got the advantage there. But later on in the lap, Hyler made a little mistake out of the second Lesmo, and now Whitehouse is back in front of him again. Here they are in real time. Up towards the Parabolica. We're just over half the way through this race now. The lead gap, 2 seconds. 1.5, sorry, as it came down. As I said that. Jake Danahan's still going very quickly right now. We'll almost definitely have the fastest lap right to the end of this race because he set it in relatively dry conditions and there won't be conditions like that again. Hyler getting closer, not quite. Meanwhile, Frank Hamming, and Ziobinski lock wheels and have to take to the escape road behind them. Could not make the corner safely. Ziobinski stays P6. I think he qualified something like 20th actually, so Matthias is doing a good job in this race as well. But that almost threw a spanner in the works, and here's a replay of what just happened. So Ziobinski was ahead, and it was Hamming coming from behind with the DRS. Went to the inside line, And Ziabinski had to turn in. And they just locked wheels and made a little bit of contact in that one. Back to real time we go. Whitehouse getting away a bit from Heiler on that lap. Heiler continuing to make a few mistakes. Not hugely confident or comfortable out there now. And Jake Dennehan is within DRS range of Arda Erkan. It still feels strange to be talking about DRS in conditions like this. And Jake does not open the DRS, so I wonder if it has now been disabled. But he is still behind, just behind Arda Erkan, within a second. I wonder if DRS gets disabled when the server reaches 15% rain, because it's now on 16%. So that could explain why we had DRS before, but we don't now. Okay. Getting closer. Amari Watson as well just challenged Darius Andre. There's Philip Koenig. And he is going around the outside. Oh, very twitchy there was Mirko Lucchini. Only just kept it steady. Jake Dennehan within half a second of Arda Erkan now. He will be ruining that DRS is inactive. He's getting closer towards the Ascari chicane. There you see it. Not close enough. He's going to be right on him in these next couple of straights now. This is a straight where you can overtake, but it's tricky because then you're under pressure for the entirety of the start-finish straight. So Dennehan may just hang back here and then try to get him into the first chicane. That's it. If he can get a run out of the Parabolica here, he can go through, I'm sure. And here we go. The gap about 3.5 tenths of a second. That should be enough. It definitely would be one if the DRS was enabled. The server has reached 22% rain, so it has kept getting wetter. And Dennehan is now up the inside line and takes the lead at Monza. Jake Dennehan, who qualified on pole position but had to pit at the end of the opening lap of the race, has recovered and retaken the lead of this race over Arda Erkan, who is still doing an amazing job in that Friesland car, don't get me wrong, but Jake Dennehan is just doing slightly better and is through to the lead. Frank Hamming now. Whoa, trying to go back around the outside of Ziabinski. That was never going to work. Got it all over that squeamish white line on the outside of the course. Slid straight off. And back through goes Mateusz Ziabinski. McCorkey's back into the points as we speak because Faber is back in the pits. Oh. And that was Andre not getting it right. Apparently Faber's not in the pits, it's just that my timing screen hasn't updated itself. Toby Davis is our 4th retirement from this race, I'm afraid. He was running in last position and appears to no longer be running at all. Hopefully he can make it back out in race 2, because I'm sure that Toby has more to show today. And who's that? Was that Ziabinski going off? Yes, so Ziabinski runs wide and through goes Hamming. Ziabinski cut the chicane, but not in a way that would gain him an advantage. He has not got that right whatsoever. Meanwhile, Toby Davis's incident appears to have been some kind of wheel failure or something, because it locked over to the left. Possibly a braking issue? It didn't appear to be slowing down very quickly. Anyway, Davis ended up in the barriers, and his race is now over. 24 cars remaining, and Moritz Kropp is a lap down. Who would have thought that? Oh, it's Watson now. Sorry, Hamming now gets it wrong. These two are not doing well at that first couple of corners, are they? Ziabinski and Hamming. It seems that every time they take to a chicane, someone makes an escape road. Redesigns the track a little. Still running 6th and 7th. They've made it through that chicane all right. Hamming with a little look on the exit. But yeah, who would have thought earlier in the season that Moritz Krop would be lapped at any races? He won a couple of races, was looking so good. He's dropped off a little in the latter part of the season, but today, not doing well at all, I'm afraid to say. Stavros Musadis just passed Alexander Ragosa, that's for P9. And still we watch Hamming versus Ziebinski. This is where Ziebinski went off a lap ago, and now Hamming runs wide, takes to the sausage curbs almost. Those are some dangerous sausage curbs. I've seen some people getting really unsettled by them. Lap 18 out of 26. We're into the latter stages of this race now. And surprisingly few pit stops going on amongst the top drivers. The Inters have appeared to hold up. Ragosa back around the outside. Oh, that's a bit hot. Running off the road, has to give the place up, and behind him, that's not Darius Andre, that's Jerry Van Bussel, so that's a car who's a lap down. Ziebinski in the pits as we speak, so Ziebinski, who was running 6th, decides to stop and returns to the track. We're probably going to see a few late pit stops like that as drivers realise that it's better not to try to stretch their Inters anymore. And he's going to return to the track in 14th. Close there with McGorgy. So, Amari Watson, P11, on the back of Darius Andre. Andre won't be struggling as much now as he was earlier on, because the rain has continued to come down. And both of these drivers are on wet tyres. In fact, this is the fight to be the top driver on full wet tyres in this race. And I saw the order change again briefly on my timing screen there. 19 cars still on the lead lap of this race. Some of the drivers who aren't on the lead lap may have been involved in incidents earlier on, so may have more pace than they've been able to demonstrate as we continue to watch this fight. Interestingly, Denahan has not been able to get away from Erkan at the rate in which he caught him. He has been pulling the gap out slightly. 2.6 seconds is the margin now, as Van Bussel gets out of the way. But even so, Jake still doesn't have that much of an advantage over Ardor Erkan. It's not very safe in these conditions, because it's so easy to make a mistake, and if he does so, Ardor's going to be right back on him. Amari Watson finds a gap. It's on the inside of turn 1. This is where his teammate has had some incidents with Mateusz Ziebinski, but through goes Amari Watson into 10th place in this race, ahead of Darius Andre. McGorgy trying to gain more points on Ziebinski. His main championship rival, Tom Stevens, is running a solid 3rd. A very anonymous 3rd, considering the gaps that have been forming around him in this race. Not always a bad thing, especially in these conditions. You don't really want to have to trust the drivers around you. And I'm afraid Jerry Van Bussel is out of the race. And that is a bit of a shame, because even though he wasn't scoring many points, I was actually quite entertained by his antics out there, because he was genuinely quite fast. And the fact that he has retired now means we won't be able to see how fast he actually was in that race. He lost control on the exit of the Ascari chicane and very nearly collected Moritz Krop, but instead just ended up touching the wall and calling it a day. Into the final 7 laps of this race. Definitely in the latter stages now. And I think that Jake Denahan, Ardor Erkan et al. Have committed to going the full way on this one set of intermediate tyres. That means that Jake Denahan would have done every lap but one on this set of tyres. And if he'd had the choice to do the entire race on this set, I'm sure that he would have done. it does mean that in race 2, we're almost definitely going to see no pit stops unless the weather is changeable. No scheduled pit stops anyway. Of course, in race 2, you don't necessarily need to stop. There's no obligation to, but you can do, and often people do. Today they won't. It's the rear tyres that tend to go off faster at Monza anyway than the front tyres as usual, due to the sudden acceleration zones that you get out of the 3 artificial chicanes on this course. Andre's been running in that P11 spot for pretty much this entire race. I'm pretty sure that's where he's going to finish because it seems to be the position he deserves today. And while he's been driving decently, those tyres earlier on just did not play into his advantage. Now I think the inters and the full wets are about equal, probably, but it's difficult to tell because they're all going to be quite worn by now. The cars are not at their fastest, and the drivers are not at their most sharp at this point in the race either. 5 laps to go. Still 19 drivers on the lead lap, and 23 remaining in this race from the 28 starters. 29 people who started the formation lap. Arda Erkan now has 10 seconds to Tom Stevens, who's in 3rd position. It's a big gap now. The top 2 pulling away, and actually Denahan has now started to put the hammer down and pull away from Arda Erkan because he's out to 4 seconds as I talk. Looking at the YouTube chat, a couple of people cheering on Jake. Lexi Mia and Boric Artifact 94 both saying, "Come on Jake," or "Go Jake." And Jake is doing just that. He is going faster than anyone else on track, I expect. And that overtake you just saw was as Ziebinski cleared Perseus Miram to put him a lap down. I honestly can't imagine what's going to come of race 2 here, actually, because it's a bit of a muddled up order as it is due to the rain. And of course, there's going to be a partially reversed grid. A number is going to be drawn between 6 and 10, and then that number of drivers is going to be reversed in this order to make up the starting order for race 2. And if you jumble up a jumbled up order, then I guess you get jumbo jumble, and it could set us up for quite a showdown. Monza's a circuit where you can overtake, of course, but then you have the other factor, which is changeable conditions. How changeable are they going to be? Ziebinski is going to pass Darius Andre there, goes through into P11, and makes the corner this time. May regret pitting for another set of tyres because he was running 6 before all of this happened. Still some time left to go in this race, and of course we don't know what his setup's like, how it is on tyre wear or anything like that, but obviously something has not gone quite to plan for Ziebinski these past few laps. Maybe he was just pushing it a little too hard earlier on. Stavros Musadis is catching Federico Rosso. I've been impressed by Musadis in this race as well. He very nearly got to lead the race in the early stages, staying out for quite a long time on those slick tyres. Probably too long. Although after switching onto inters, he's been coming up through the field and is up into 8th position in this race, and is quite likely to get up to 7th position as well, despite Federico Rosso's best efforts. Not long to go in this race now. I'm already thinking about race 2, because this race, as exciting as it's been, appears to have settled into a bit of an order here, and it looks like, unless anything drastic happens, the top 3 at least is quite settled. I think this is the top real battle that we're watching now between Federico Rosso and Stavros Museidis. But even though this race might be drawing to a close, absolutely do not go anywhere, because race 2 could be just as frenetic as the start of race 1 here. I always say with GPVWC, coming into any race, I go, this could be an exciting one because of these reasons. And it's always true. I always mean it. Because so many different races here are different, or are exciting for different reasons. Some are intriguing from a championship standpoint. Some have changeable conditions, like this one. Some have vicious rivals pitched up against each other, side by side on the grid. Meanwhile, Moritz Krop there got off the road. Apparently Ragosa potentially may have lost a little bit of time recently. Could have done. He's got about a 9-second disadvantage to Stavros Museidis ahead of him. I personally didn't see anything happen, but then again, I'm watching the images that you're seeing, plus also the images that I'm looking at in the game, and even so, it's quite easy for things to go unnoticed. Amari Watson. My apologies, Amari Watson going for 9th place now. But the rain is beginning to ease again, down to 15% on the server. I wonder if that means the RS is going to be activated again soon. I'll keep an eye on that one. Around the Curva Grande. Who am I getting messages from? No one involved in the race, never mind. Let's see what we're watching a replay of. This is Alexander Ragosa, who may have lost time earlier on in this lap. And there is how he lost it. Good catch there, Szymon. Szymon Frelik, my cameraman, doing a good job to catch that one, and that was Moritz Krop very nearly getting a face full of car as Alexander Ragosa rejoined the circuit there. Good avoidance from Moritz. He's just got to keep going and then hope his second race is a bit better than his first. Running in 21st position so far. And we are not looking at another replay. That was a visual glitch. Ragosa, Watson and Ziobinski. It's been a while since we've seen a three-way fight in this race, actually. You often do get three-way battles or more at Monza as the cars bunch together, but that's in the dry as Watson gets Ragosa. And here comes Mateusz Ziobinski. And Ragosa coming straight back at Watson. There's the slipstream in play for you. Nicely done from Alexander Ragosa there. There wasn't a braking zone or anything in between those two moves. And that is nicely done and dusted. Penultimate lap of the race now, so just one more chance after this for any one of these drivers. Oh, that is a touch. Some touring car style racing going on into the chicane, with Ziobinski seemingly bump drafting Amari Watson. Here's the slightly banked Les Mouton. Thought I saw a little bit of a change of position. Well, Omagorgi is up past Darius Andre. Two rivals from this championship, but they're not used to fighting so far down the order. Final lap now for Jake Dennehan, but keep watching this fight here because this could go right the way to the end. It's updated to a 5-car battle now with Omagorgi catching them. And potentially getting involved on this last lap of the race. Magorgi's another driver who has to just keep running and hope he can do better in the second race here. Out of the Parabolica. Ziobinski on the inside. If these two collide, Magorgi has a chance at the reverse grid pole. Wouldn't that be something? Across the start-finish line for the penultimate time in this race. And they're very nearly going to go 3 wide. They are going to go 3 wide. Ziabinski threads the needle. And Ragosa somehow keeps the position. Watson follows him through on the exit. And Ziabinski, who ran over the curbing, loses time and loses the place. McGorgy just over a second behind them. I don't think he's going to be able to get truly involved by the end of this lap, but it would be exciting if he did. Oh, and there's a touch! But here we see Jake Dennehan coming out of the final corner of this race, and Jake Dennehan wins after pitting on the very first lap. An amazing drive. Ada Erkan's really dropped back on this lap, and Watson did spin, so he is recovering from that spin. Erkan finishes second, his first GPWC podium. Great job from him. Tom Stevens is going to finish third and extend his championship lead. Oh, and a touch for fifth. And Heiler gets nerfed off the road. So Whitehouse fourth, then it's going to be Frank Hamming fifth. And Maciej Heiler sixth, despite contact on that last lap there, or because of contact on that last lap hit there. And it's Russo, Mercedes, Ragosa, but will it be Ragosa? Because here comes Mateusz Ziabinski. And Ziabinski's up the inside into the Parabolica. It's going to be a Monza 71 style finish for this bunch. Out of the final corner, McGorgy getting involved. It's going to be Ziabinski 9th and McGorgy 10th, and he does have a chance at the reverse grid pole. Imagine that. Alexander Ragosa comes home P11 after losing that position just... Careful not to crash into Maciej after that. Never mind. Whoopsie daisy. Over the barriers almost goes Darius Andre. And you are not supposed to crash after the finish, but I presume that Heiler must have run out of fuel or something and the others didn't see him. So that did appear to be a complete accident there. Heiler 6th, Russo 7th, and Mercedes, Ziabinski, McGorgy, Ragosa, Andre, Koenig, Lucchini, and Watson scores the final points paying position after his collision on the last lap of the race, a collision which we might be about to take a look at, and we will. So this is Amari Watson, and this is a bit late because the accident at the end of the race has already happened there, but here we go. So he was challenging Ragosa on the final lap. Ziabinski was behind him, and this is Ziabinski's view of the collision. Up the inside. Oh, and it was Ziabinski who ran into the back of Amari Watson and spun him round. So that's your order at the end of race 1. The reverse grid pole could go to anyone from P6 down to P10, so Heiler, Russo, Mercedes, Ziabinski or McGorgy, and we will find out during the session. And there's the collision between Heiler and Hamming, which gave Hamming that at P5. Judge that how you will. As the drivers discuss that race that we've just seen in the in-game chat. Congratulations to Jake Dennehan. That was a very well-deserved win and quite a dominant one in the end. Winning from pole, but not leading every lap. It wasn't a lights to flag. He really had to work for that one. And Ada Erkan, of course, second despite starting from the pit lane. Tom Stevens extending his championship lead. I'm going to go for another break now due to the fact we are in another warm-up session, or will be shortly. I'm going to go and get a drink. You should probably all do the same, and then be back here in about 10 minutes for the start of the formation lap for the second race. Don't go anywhere. Hello everyone, welcome back to GPVWC, where we've just seen a very changeable, very wet, very interesting first race out of two. And of course we have the second race coming up. I've still got the hiccups. I'm still your commentator, Caitlin Penny, and of course our broadcast director, bringing you all of the sights and the action that you're seeing is Szymon Frelik. We've got the checkered flag now on this warm-up session. And I've got the reverse grid number. It's 8, meaning that Stavros Musadis will be starting on pole for this second race. And Jake Dennehan, our race 1 winner, will be starting from P8 once all is said and done. And it's going to be an 18-lap race. By the looks of things, it'll be on intermediate tyres, and I reckon that every driver pretty much is going to do the entire thing in one go without making a pit stop. The story of the day so far has been that Jake Dennehan has been pretty dominant. He took pole by 0.3 of a second and then won the second race by about 11 seconds. And even though he had to fight for it, he did it, and he did it convincingly. So the question now is, can anyone stop Jake, or is he just too fast? In my opinion, I think it is definitely possible for some of the drivers starting ahead of Jake to stop him from coming through. I think Stavros Musadis, actually, who starts from pole position, stands a pretty good chance of winning this one, because he looked quick in that second race, and he looked as if he had the racecraft. It's just that he stayed out way too long on those slick tyres. I reckon that he could be a real dark horse in this race and might well be able to hang on to the win. Yeah, there you see the calendar. We have just 4 races remaining after this one. By the way, we may have a little bit of a problem on the server. Frank Hamming seems to have left the session, and judging by the way the session has not ticked over yet, I wonder whether we are waiting for him. It would be very nice if we did. Unfortunately, it's a different matter when drivers disconnect on the formation lap, because as I found out in Formula Sprint 2 the other day, the race director is not going to restart the formation lap for you, but he can hold up the warm-up session and can hold up the session ticking over in order to allow you to have a good chance of starting the actual race itself. So I think we're waiting for Frank Hamming, but once he makes it back, we will be able to start the second race of the day, which is going to be 18 laps of the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. Let me check the YouTube chat while I'm waiting, because if race 2 is anywhere near as dramatic as race 1 was, then I'm not going to get another chance to check it. A lot of people celebrating Ada Erkan's podium there. Oliver Prickian saying, "Go Ada Erkan." Daka 2 saying, "Turkey." Indeed. And of course, a couple of people supporting Jake as well. Jake too easy, says Dan Hayek, and Jake Legend, says Craig Patterson. And then, of course, we have Josh Downard and Szymon Frelik supporting George. I've forgotten his name now, because you've both put George Goathouse. It's George Whitehouse, there we go, but George Goathouse. Fair enough. He did finish P4 in that race, which was a very impressive drive in conditions like that. And George's first FS1 race of the season, by the looks of things, as he's been racing in other categories heading up to this point. Still waiting in order to get going here. Not quite able to start this race just yet. And yeah, some people saying, can we hurry up with this? I wonder if the weather's going to change in the time it takes to start the race, actually. Currently, it's registered as being on 13%, which we saw in the first race is definitely intermediate weather, but not full wet weather. If it changes, there's a chance it could go in the direction of slicks or full wets. Probably full wets a little more likely, but it took a while to get there in the first race. The race director setting the positions on the grid, and saying moving to race. So it looks as if Frank may not be able to start. Frank Hamming, unless he gets in very quickly now, is not going to be able to start the second race here, and that would be a big shame for one of the top drivers in this league. As we move now to the race session, so it looks as if we're going to have 28 cars rather than the 29 that we were supposed to have. Luckily, Rafał Lukaszewski has made it back. He, of course, the driver who was supposed to start race 1, but did not due to a disconnection or whatever it was on the formation lap. And unless Frank Hamming can make it back in the next 40 seconds, then unfortunately he will not be able to start this race. There are the drivers on the grid. 30 seconds until the formation lap begins. And I am unsure as to what's going to happen in this race. Race 2 is always so unpredictable with GPVWC. The order is shaken up. The weather is still pretty dreary. And there's drivers up there in positions that they could only dream of qualifying in for a race 1. So they've got to fight for their lives in order to score the results that they know they can score from that. Let's see the grid, shall we? As we head away for the formation lap now. And Mateusz Jabinski has left the race now. So Mateusz Jabinski, who was going to start in, I don't know exactly which position he was going to start in, but we'll see that soon, has unfortunately not been able to make it to the start of the race. But let's take a look at the order anyway. So that is Stavros Muzeidis on pole position, followed by the 2 Santon Motorsport cars of Federico Rosso and Maciej Heiler, and then George Whitehouse in P4. P5 is Tom Stevens, then it's Arda Erkan, Jake Dennehan, and there was going to be Mateusz Jabinski, but he is not here. And of course Frank Hamming was also supposed to be in there somewhere, but he is not here either. So 2 of the top 10 dropping up before the race has even begun. Magorki will be P9, then it's Alexander Ragosa, Darius Andre, and Philip Koenig. Marco Lucchini, Murray Watson, Fabian Ballet, and Adrian Faber. Jabinski is back in the server, but it's too late. They don't restart at this point. He's not going to be able to get going. Menno Klont, P17, then Vincent Gutt, Dylan Tarbaton, and Moritz Kropp, who's had a terrible day so far, not doing at all well by his standards. Perseus Miran, P21, then Gerrit de Vries, Jerry Van Bussel, and Toby Davis, also not doing at all well for his standards, but this is his first Super Cup race of the year, so I'm sure, or FS1, sorry, so I'm sure he can be forgiven. Kasper Mikulak, P25, then Maurice Brackham, Mike Quint, and Rafał Lukaszewski. And that's the lot, I'm afraid, because like I said, we are missing both Mateusz Jabinski and Frank Hamming as we come to the line. So 27 drivers. Leave your predictions in the chat if you want to. There are 7 drivers up there at least who could win this race. And Magorki on the back of Jake as well. That could be some fireworks. Magorki losing some points, some valuable points to some of his championship rivals, to Stevens and to Dennehan in that first race there. And will not be able to afford to lose anymore. To the grid they go. Fanning out already. Not much weaving going on. Drivers not really feeling the need to warm their tyres. Top driver on full wet tyres is Menno Klont, and that is a huge risk because we saw how much Adrian Faber struggled in that first race. And he is the only driver on full wet tyres, and I'm not at all surprised by that. No one electing to start from the pit lane, so everyone seems relatively happy with the tyres that they have selected. And when the 5 red lights go out, we will be racing once again with GPVWC from Monza. Here come the lights. 5 and go. Away we go for the second time here at Monza, and Russo has got away slightly better than Stavros Muzeidis. He's still going to be up the inside as they head towards the first corner, shuffling further back in the pack, but that's to be expected. And a little bit of a 3 wide squeeze for third, and that is one of the Santen cars up the inside. It looks as if Maciej Heiler is going to be P4, but Federico Rosso is not able to get past Stavros Muzeidis. Muzeidis leads, and it's Rosso, Stevens, and Heiler, and George Whitehouse attempting to get past Heiler in the mist and the spray, and there's a touch, and around goes Heiler. Heiler is in the wall, and he's back onto the track, and has not lost his front wing or anything, so is able to still keep going in this race. But that was a very dramatic moment there in the spray, with Heiler being tipped into a spin. And now there's a collision between Faber and a big crash. And is that Mirko Lucchini? So Lucchini is upside down and flips his front wing off his car, rejoins the race, but way down the order. Darius Andre now, side by side with Alexander Ragosa, also in the mist and the spray. That Lucchini accident happened as a result of slight contact with Faber, causing Faber's car to spear off the road and then back on into the side of Mirko Lucchini's car. Little bit of contact. Whoa, Davis sliding sideways. He's gained a lot of places on this opening lap, up into P16 from 24th on the grid. And I thought I saw someone lose control out of the S's there, and there's another yellow flag. So yes, I did. Dylan Tarberton has stopped. He's in the barriers. He's lost his front wing, as has Adrian Faber. So yes, some more cars involved at the end of that first lap. Tom Stevens is now up to second. George Whitehouse is up to third. So not only has Heiler lost places, but so have some other drivers. And there is the fight for the lead. Stevens on the inside, and he's going to muscle his way through, forces the door open, and Tom Stevens takes the lead on the second lap here at Monza. Ragosa and Heiler side by side further back. Heiler, who's very lucky to still be continuing, and the biggest winner on that first lap is Mike Quint, who's up 10 positions as we speak. Bunch of cars into the pits. Faber is in, as are Lucchini, and I'm afraid Dylan Tarberton is out of the race. I think he was the driver who I saw losing control out of the Ascari chicane, because he ended up nosing into the wall without his front wing. But I'll be very interested to see what happened to Heiler, because that seemed to happen right up the pointy end of the feeling. And we have some replays lined up, but right now we're watching George Whitehouse on the back of Stavros Muzeidis up the inside, and he's not, well, he is there, isn't he? But there's another apex to navigate. And he goes through. George Whitehouse takes second, and Jake Dennehan is already up to third on the second lap of the race. Dennehan is going to be so tough to stop today. He is absolutely the dominant driver of this field. Sparks flying in his face as he continues on. And around the outside goes Owen McGorgy, who's up to fifth. McGorgy, who by this point in race one was pretty much out of it, is going up into fourth position. And slipstreaming, Jake Dennehan and George Whitehouse up in front. Here comes Dennehan and Whitehouse up the inside. Through he goes. Jake Dennehan is already up to second place on just lap 3. I said before the race, I thought that some drivers might just about be able to hold off Jake Dennehan. Right now, I'm really not sure. He is looking unstoppable today. Could this be a double victory for Jake Dennehan at Monza? Whitehouse seems to move over there. Whitehouse moves over to let McGorgy through, and McGorgy up the inside of Dennehan. They touch, they bang wheels. McGorgy had a go at Dennehan. Dennehan stays second, and all over the grass goes Alexander Ragosa. Andre tries the outside on Ragosa's car. They might lock wheels in a second if they're not careful. And they do, just slightly. Oh, and Darius has shown the grass. Heiler goes back up to 7th. Onto the straight once again. No DRS. And Heiler goes for a move on Ragosa, but it's too late on the straight, I think. Very good racing in the early stages of this one, albeit with a little bit more contact than I would have liked. Stevens leads from Dennehan and McGorgy, a very common top 3 actually. Often you pick and choose which order those 3 are in. Look, Koenig taking a look at Maciej Heiler. Koenig's always good in the wet, actually. Seems to do well in these conditions. As Mike Quint seems to have dropped back a little. I wonder if he was the cause of the yellows there. Jerry Van Bussel is out of the race, I'm afraid. Comes our second retirement. And a big shame for him, because like I said, He does have some real pace today. And there's Andre making, and forcing Koenig over and there's a collision. Heiler and Andre both forced into the gravel. Koenig was over the curbs. He was flying like a flying thing. And off they all went. Philip Koenig down into P10. Vincent Gutt trying to go around the outside of him now. Van Bussel's incident was interesting. Just seemed to lose it and then give up in the gravel. But yeah, we haven't even been able to look at replays yet because we haven't had a chance. There have been so many things going on in this race. Adrian Faber, meanwhile, has also retired. So we have 24 cars remaining already. The gap for the lead, 4 seconds. Tom Stevens, fastest driver on track right now. Can Dennehan engage the gear that I know he has inside of him? Or does Tom Stevens have enough? More yellow flags somewhere. Not Andre, he's okay, although he was very close there. Gerrit de Vries is out of the race. He becomes our 4th retirement. Here's Ragosa. Behind Musadis, who's dropped back a lot quicker than I expected in this race, I have to say. De Vries' incident, he just kind of lost it by himself on the exit of Les Mous 1. Easy to do, especially in these conditions. Lewis Hamilton's crashed there. Moritz Kropp up into P14, up into the points despite his poor race 1. Kropp on Klunt now. Goes through, up to P13. Catching Darius Andre. Fabian Ballet. No, sorry, that was Maciej Heiler trying to follow them through. Almost forced into the gravel once again. And now it's Klunt and Heiler side by side. So, Cyrus Musadis is still P5. Since most of the races are happening a little further back, do you think now would be a good time to have a look at those replays we got stacked up, Szymon? Let's have a little look-see what we've got here. There was plenty of drama in the opening few laps. Here's Maciej Heiler, and this is a bit later on, but yeah, this is earlier on when he had his incident. He's going to get touched from behind. Oh, it wasn't a lag spike or anything, it was just a little misjudgment there for George Whitehouse. Whitehouse incident, he's still running in 4th position in this race, and a very good recovery from Maciej Heiler. It's honestly super impressive that after a spin like that, he's still running in P14. And he's had time to have another incident in the meantime. How did those three go 3 wide through the second part of that chicane there? Well, they couldn't do it through the Les Mous, could they? There was that huge crash that we saw in the opening lap from Mirko Lucchini. And Lucchini is still running in this race. Mike Quint, I'm afraid, is out. And there is the incident as Koenig got forced over the curbs and lost out dramatically. So I think we're just about caught up on that now. Here is Jake Dennehan, not gaining that much on Tom Stevens just yet. In fact, McGorgy is not letting him go. Huh. Mike Quint's incident was on the exit of the Ascari chicane. That's a common place to have an accident. Very popular barrier to hit, and actually Toby Davis had a little off in front of him, but carried on. And Tarberton's accident on the first lap was very, very similar, except he got collected by Faber, which is why they are now both out of this race. Amari Watson running P10, just behind Koenig and Erkan. There were 3 cars side by side a little further back. Hopefully they made it through the Ascari chicane okay. 3-wide action is hair-raising at the best of times, but when you're in the wet at Monza. And Whitehouse is off. Whitehouse has made a mistake at the Parabolica. He must have got out of shape on the entry. Whitehouse driving for Nova Sim Racing in the place of Stephen Lexo. Had a big, massive amount of opposite lock Did well to keep it out of the gravel, but through went Mercedes and Ragosa. He came back at Ragosa, and they're still side by side. Up the exit of the chicane, Ragosa tipped his wheels through the grass, but stayed 5th. And Moritz Kropp is in his own fight with Maciej Heiler. Whitehouse has done a good job not to lose more positions. He's still in P6 in this one, as Erda Erkan passes Philip Koenig and only just makes the corner, and Philip goes back through into P8. Amari Watson is the car you see getting involved there as well. Amari, who was involved in a very similar accident at the same part of the circuit in race 1 and ended up 15th as a result. There's Whitehouse. Now watch from on board, watch his steering input. He's going to get so much opposite lock. Whoa, that's not good. And Yori's going to be in no man's land after that one. So through go both Mercedes and Ragosa. Now what are the lap times for the leaders? Well, Stevens, his laps have been consistently in the low 138s, in fact very consistently. He's been in the low 38 since lap 3. Whereas Jake Dennehan, his it was a 138.5 that time around, although his lap before was quicker. It was a 137.8. So I think Dennehan has the potential to go quicker. He has a fastest lap than Jake Dennehan, than Tom Stevens, but hasn't been able to use it quite yet. George Whitehouse trying to get back at Alexander Ragosa. Switchback manoeuvre? Not quite. Meanwhile, Maciej Heiler got past Vincent Gutt. That was for P13. The fastest driver on track right now is actually Mirko Lucchini, down in 22nd place. He, of course, made a pit stop after the opening lap schmozzle. And it's very impressive to see a car that's been upside down and presumably has steering damage, setting the fastest lap of everyone. Tom Stevens leads by 4 seconds after 8 laps of this race. And then it's Jake Dennehan, still not quite clear of Owen McGorgy. And actually DRS is active now. Only 10% rain on the server, and DRS, I saw the DRS flap on McGorgy's car open there. Stavros Mercedes is still P4, then it's Ragosa, Whitehouse, Russo, Koenig, Erkan, Watson, Andre, Heiler, Gutt, Kropp, and Ballet. The top 15, the drivers currently on course to score points in this race. Whitehouse on the back of Ragosa. Ragosa twitches. Ragosa steering with his rear through the parabolica. Whitehouse is going to get a much better exit. Goes to the inside and flies through in the straight. You see the DRS flap open, gaping wide on the back of that Nova Sim Racing car. Ooh, a bit of a twitch on the braking, but he gets through, gets the move done, and doesn't career across the track into Alexander Ragosa. And he's back into the top 5. I imagine the chat's going wild, and McGorgy's up the inside of Dennehan. McGorgy challenging Jake Dennehan once again. Very nearly touched him into the chicane. Dennehan's got the exit wrong. McGorgy's still there on his inside. And Dennehan stays ahead. Meanwhile, Ragosa has just got back past Whitehouse. Wow, so Dennehan, who seemed to be the dominant force in this round earlier on, is now losing time to both Stevens and McGorgy and is under pressure from Owen McGorgy himself. Here's a replay, but we're a bit early. Now we're a bit late, but here we go. McGorgy coming from actually a decent amount of time back. And there's been a bit of a collision at the chicane. Toby Davis is off the road, as is Maurice Brackham, who's now out of the race. So that's happened while we're watching the replays. Neither of them were in the points. And now Brackham has retired. It looks as if Davis went for a move. Didn't really remove his nose when Brackham expected him to. Got over the sausage curb, and the two went off into the gravel. We might be seeing a replay. No, we're not. We're back to real time, but that is okay. As Whitehouse once again lines up Alexander Ragosa just as he did a lap ago. Up the inside. And, oh, and they touch. And he's still got to turn in. Oh, and they don't give each other enough room. Round goes Ragosa. Round goes Alexander Ragosa. He's parked on the exit of turn 2. Engages reverse gear to give himself a better angle to rejoin from. Rejoins the road. And he's P15. He's only got 1 point to his name. As Ada Ercan gets up to P8. And fights with Federico Rosso. Here's a replay of the collision now. Now, who didn't make space for who? Who had the line there? I think we're about to see. If we look a little further up, there we are. Alexander Ragosa was on the outside, but he was ahead here. Now, they're fine coming out of here. If they'd got through here, this would have been absolutely fine. Trouble is, Ragosa, I mean, Whitehouse hasn't really got anywhere to go. Where does Ragosa want him to go? Onto the grass? I think that was slightly self-induced from Alexander Ragosa there, although the stewards will have a good look at it if it is indeed reported. And now that means that Whitehouse is back up into P5. And both of those drivers may be on the hook actually, because if you remember, it was Whitehouse who spun Maciej Heiler on the first lap. Philip Koenig gets through. Philip Koenig up to P5. Philip Koenig, the master of race 2s. I always see him coming through the field in race 2. And even though he rarely gets involved in the reverse grid proceedings, he always seems to benefit from the carnage and chaos that inevitably ensues in a hard-fought second race. Guess they don't need their cars again for another 2 weeks. Philip Koenig, P5. George Whitehouse, P6. What was Koenig's best result of the season so far? Let me look that up. I bet it was a race 2 result. Yeah, he was P4 in race 2 at the Canadian round, the support race for the Canadian Grand Prix. And that was his best round overall as well, because it was the only race where he was in the points in... Sorry, the only round where he was in the points in both races. Philip, about to, or attempting to improve on that. A little bit of ground to make up if he wants to catch Stavros Musaidis. Here is Owen McGorky once again. And going for it on Jake Dennehan, and he passes him. Owen McGorky, who had that penalty, who had an incident in race 1, who dropped back and never really got a fair chance as Ragosa is out of the race. But yes, Owen McGorky makes the move on Jake Dennehan and is now well and truly in this race and on the podium. There's Ada Ercan. Wonder what happened to Ragosa there, because he was running quite well. Had that grassy movement earlier on. Replay. Is this just going to be a disconnection, or is he going to lose it? Well, he's in the Ascari chicane, which is a bit of an accident black spot. Loses it. Hits the wall. And off comes the front wing. Alexander Ragosa retires from the race after hitting the wall on the exit of the Ascari chicane. Down to the Ascari chicane now go McGorky and Dennehan in their fight for second position. And Dennehan doesn't appear to have as much grip as McGorky right now. It's a lapped car coming up, a little down the road, just saw it in the distance. There it is. That's not Tom Stevens, and that is Ada Ercan running off the road. So Maciej Heiler gets P9 now, and Ercan's about to be passed by Darius Andre too. At least you don't lose that much by running off at that point in the Ascari chicane, because you can slightly cut the corner. And of course there is a bit of a road you can rejoin onto at the end as well. 5 laps to go in this second race here at Monza. Stevens leading by 7 seconds. He is getting away now. But McGorgy and Dennehan fighting hard for second. There is Fabian Ballet. Squirming under the brakes. He might have to bail out of that one. Doesn't. Wow, good job. I was nervous about that one. Makes it through. Gut now coming back at him. Oh, Ballet covers him off. That was almost a Maciej Hyla style movement. And runs wide over the curbs. Those are the curbs where the GT car flipped earlier in this year, so they have to be careful. Pretty savage pieces of kit that really should be removed. Here's a replay. This is of what happened to Ada Erkan as he ran across the outside of the Ascari chicane. It looks as if he was distracted by that Santin car ahead of him. And that is a very easy mistake to make. And there's the little escape road that I was talking about there, that he used to rejoin the road. 4 laps to go. Oh, what's happened to McGorgy? McGorgy just lost second. McGorgy just lost second on the exit of the Parabolica. And Dennehan... Yeah, so McGorgy made a mistake in the Parabolica, and Dennehan tried to come back at him. Couldn't quite. It was a good save from McGorgy, but his car was not doing what he wanted it to through that. And there is Amari Watson getting 6th now ahead of George Whitehouse. McGorgy still running second. I'm not sure why anyone tried to go for 4 wet tyres in this race. I would have understood it if it was someone kind of a long way back, but it hasn't worked out for the drivers who have tried it. Manu Klont is currently fighting with Kasper Michalak for 1 point in this race. Manu to the outside. Oh, Michalak runs straight over the curbs, Philip Koenig style. So Manu is now on course for a point. And the server appears to be freezing slightly. Is that just on my end? I saw that just now. I think I might be losing connection. Okay, well, if you can still hear me, I have lost connection, so I will try to sort that out quickly. Szymon, do you hear me? Hello there? Okay, I think I'm back. My apologies. Yeah, had an internet disconnection and also got disconnected from the server. Good job it was only me, because I was a bit worried about the server itself there, but it seems like everything is okay. Alright, so Stevens still leading, followed by McGorky and Dennehan, who are still fighting over that second position. The top fight in this race so far. Here's a replay, just so I can catch up on what I missed in those last couple of seconds. Philip Koenig. Oh, Philip loses it. Oh my goodness, and who was that? Whoa! Great avoidance from the 2 cars behind him. Amazing stuff, going to the outside and not even touching the grass. And Kasper Michalak's out of the race. And unfortunately, because I got booted out of the server, I can't check why that was. But yes, Kasper is out. As Toby Davis pits. Hopefully those two were unconnected. Just a few laps to go in this race now. Tom Stevens still in the lead. Followed by McGorky and Dennehan. All 3 of those are realistic oh, and Whitehouse and Watson have swapped. As we were speaking, there they are. Tom Stevens, fastest lap of the race, still getting away from the drivers behind him. And Koenig and Hyla now swapping as well. Toby Davis coming out of the pits right in front of this battle. Yes, okay. And Whitehouse lining up Musadis. Sorry, Whitehouse being lined up by Watson, my apologies. Musadis is further down the road. And Watson's run off. So that's what happened between him and Whitehouse. And now Heiler loses that to Koenig. Goodness me, all of a sudden there's so many battles kicking off. Drivers making mistakes up and down the order. Koenig P8, Heiler P9, Erkan right on the back of them in P10. There's Koenig making his move. That's on Heiler. And he overshot it. Interesting. Yeah, like I was going to say, I think any of the top three in this race. Whoa! Okay, that was a lag spike. My apologies. That looked like a huge crash there, but it was just a lag spike followed by Maciej Heiler running off the road. I don't know if that was connected or not, but anyway, just a broadcast. Okay. As I keep trying to say, any of the top three are likely candidates for driver of the day here. They've all done a wonderful job. Stevens has been by far the quickest in the second race here, and very, very smooth. Nagorki has recovered from his penalty, which admittedly was his fault, but not, I mean, today he's been fine. As they get the path cleared for them by Perseus Mira. And then, of course, Jake Dennehan, who dominated qualifying and race 1. And Arda Erkan getting up to P9. I'm sure Arda would be some of your votes for driver of the day. And he's another one who's done a very good job. Meneklump may still not score a point, I'm afraid, because Rafael Lukashevsky is up into P15. Oh, and a big twitch. And the rain is not really falling now. It's a damp track rather than a wet track. So Menno's full wet tyres are not really serving him right now. Going for a dive anyway on the really wet part of the track, but I think that was speculative and he ended up finding the curb. Lucchini's going to get him on the exit. Shame for Menno. He's another of the drivers who could have done a lot better today with the car and the setup that he had. Mirko Lucchini goes through. The leaders are on the final lap of the race now as there's contact between Klunt and Lucchini. Nagorki and Dennehan is the fight that I'm really interested in, because that only has a few more chances to change now. I'm wondering how desperate Dennehan's going to be. These two are fighting for second in the championship. And if Stevens has a bad round or two, this could end up being a championship fight. Watson as well on the back of Whitehouse. This one not really too big in terms of the championship, but still an exciting fight for this one particular race. Tom Stevens has definitely been the fastest driver in this race. He's got the fastest lap back. And 7 seconds is his gap for the lead. Kasper Michalak didn't find out why he's out of the race, but it now means that there's only 19 drivers remaining. And these drivers here only have a couple of corners to go now. Just the Ascari chicane and then the Parabolica. And I think that Dennehan may just have enough. Sorry, Nagorki may just have enough. But if Dennehan can have a go, he's going to have to do it down into the Parabolica. He's not going to get another chance. Through the final corner comes Tom Stevens now. And after a great race from Tom Stevens, he's going to win at Monza. There he goes. Stevens wins. As we're watching Fabian Bali running off the road further back. But Tom Stevens has won the race. Owen Nagorki was second, just ahead of Jake Dennehan in the end. Stavros Musadis was P4. Then George Whitehouse and Amari Watson, who were close together in the end. Federico Rosso is going to be P7. We're watching the fight for P11, which is going to come to blows, potentially. And actually, just ahead of them, Koenig's got no front wing. So it's all... Yeah, oh, and a spin! And off goes Bali. So Bali doing a bit of a pirouette. Oh, a huge crash! And that was Moritz Kropp, who will flip his way across the line, Christian Fittipaldi style. Goodness me. He did make it. He was classified. And Bally there, not really holding his brakes, spinning back into the path of Moritz Krop's car. We're going to see a replay of that. The final point was taken by Rafał Lukaszewski at the end of that one. But what a race from Tom Stevens. There's Koenig losing it. So Koenig's got no front wing. Then there's two drivers fighting further back. This is Bally and Andre. Bally takes a look to the outside, which turns into the inside. He has to go for it. It's his last chance. They rub wheels. Surprisingly, don't come to blows properly. Then they get held up by the slowing Koenig, and Bally just loses it and drifts straight back into the path of Moritz Krop. This is going to be brutal. Kablam! Yeah, there may be a report for that one. But Moritz was still able to finish in P13 at the end. And that is the end of the race. So we'll see the full order very shortly. And then hopefully we'll be able to speak to some of these drivers in the interview room. There we go. Tom Stevens wins, followed by Owen McGorgy, Jake Dennehan, Stavros Musadis, George Whitehouse, Amari Watson, Federico Russo, Arda Erkan, Maciej Heiler, and Philip Koenig. I have no idea who I would vote for driver of the day out of those top three. It could be any of them. Darius Andre, P11, then Vincent Gutt, Moritz Krop, Fabian Bally, Rafał Lukaszewski, Mirko Lucchini, Menu Klont, Toby Davis, Perseus Miram, and unfortunately Kasper Mikulak and everyone below that point retired from the race. So anyway, let's take a look at the calendar. Obviously, we've just completed the Italian Grand Prix round, the Italian Grand Prix support race. So we have 4 races to go in the championship. We're into the final quarter now. It's Singapore on the 15th of September. Then we have the Japanese Grand Prix, the Mexican Grand Prix, and the Brazilian Grand Prix support races to round out the championship. And it's looking all the more likely that Tom Stevens is going to be lifting the trophy at the end of that. But it's still worth tuning in case anything happens. So that's the end of today's action, but we do still have some interviews with some of the leading drivers, so stick around for those. Okay, first of all, let's bring in Owen McGorgy, who did a wonderful job today for TOP Esports and Nova Sim Racing. My apologies. Owen, fantastic stuff. I know you started way down the order, but it was shaken up, and you ended up coming through the field to, first of all, a P10 finish in race 1, second of all, P2 in race 2. You must feel pretty good about that. Owen, can you hear us?
Hello. Yeah.
There we go. Okay, Owen, yes, good job. Owen, we can't hear you again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there we go.
Because I was moving my mic around. Yeah, race 1 was good, bar lap 1, starting 15th, I think, and then I was like P10 by the second chicane, and then I just got straight lined by someone I can't remember. But that wasn't cool. Lost my rear wing. Don't know how I didn't hit anyone when I was pushed over the track into the corner. But yeah, almost lost the car a couple of times. Then lost it on a straight. Just trying to let people through. But the rest of the race, it was just me trying to get as far up the field as I could, and it helped that there were a few incidents ahead, and some people went on the wet tire, which was not the best idea. But yeah, that last corner move was something.
Yeah, goodness me, that last lap, everyone the seas parted for you, didn't they?
I wouldn't say the seas parted for me. I was almost squeezed onto the grass. But yeah, I was braking early, knowing that someone was going to go out wide, and then it was Ragosa who almost lost it into the side of me, but I managed to keep it on the road and got him by about 12 thousandths or 22 thousandths or something.
And of course, that put you right into contention for race 2, starting in 8th position, which then turned into starting in 9th position, which then turned into 8th. Second place, were you expecting that to be the result at the end?
To be fair, I wouldn't say expecting a win, but I thought I'd be much closer. Yeah, there was. Tom just got away so quick with Stavros holding us up, and yeah, I got past him when he made a mistake, I think, into Ascari, but then getting past Jake was easy with his straight line speed, I'll say. He was a bit too slow in the straight line. I don't know why he probably made a wet setup thinking everyone else was going to go on a bit higher downforce, but I made a couple of mistakes into Parabolica because I heard George either shouting in my ear or moaning, or I was talking to Josh and then just losing concentration. But I mean, the straight line speed that I had compared to Jake was just, yeah, crazy that I was able to get past him so quick.
Indeed. Well, it was well done. Some good damage limitation there, considering the circumstances. Unfortunately, Tom did manage to finish, or unfortunately for you, Tom did manage to finish ahead in both races, and is now over a win's worth clear in the championship. Does that change your attitude going into the future rounds?
My attitude changed after, I think, just right after Spa, but yeah, I went into this round. To be fair, I didn't do as much practice as I would have liked, and today I only got on about an hour's worth of practice. But you know, considering I heard from Tom himself that he was supposed to be on holiday for this round, I'm surprised that he was here. But yeah.
Sneaky. Anyway, thanks for speaking to us, and congratulations on your podium, considering the circumstances.
Thanks. Shout out to Tom Ely as well for the help with the setup.
Indeed, Tom Ely, very good with setups. Thank you, Owen. Let's speak to Owen's team boss, shall we? Let's bring in Josh Downard. Josh, so you had two rather competitive drivers out there today, Owen and George. Quite a dramatic day of racing, but how did it seem from your point of view?
Yeah, it was. Well, obviously, could have gone better. Mainly starting with the rain on the formation lap, really sort of annoyingly, if the drivers were sort of starting further back, we probably would have gone for the risky, like going on inters. But because they were in decent positions, at least we thought we'd stick with it. But obviously, then Owen got hit, and then the inters were quite quickly the better tyre. So that was a bit unfortunate. But I mean, Owen did a great job get back. I mean, he was last at the end of lap 1 and ended up finishing 10th to set him up for a good race too. So that was good. And then George coming in sort of last minute, not as much practice as sort of he would have liked. And yeah, did a great job. So there are a few incidents along the way, but yeah, I think they both did a great job today.
Now, ever since Craig left your team, that second seat has been a little bit of a revolving door. You still had Craig at Hungary, of course, and then you had Stephen Lexo at Belgium. Is there going to be a permanent driver in that seat towards the end of the season, or is it a bit up in the air right now?
To be honest, no. It's not that it's been like we've been struggling to find drivers. It's Stephen was always a sort of more like official reserve for us. But he doesn't really like Monza. He's never really got on with the track. So he said kind of that we could get someone else if we wanted. And George is someone we know and we know is quick. So he came in. So to be honest, to the end, it'll be sort of a mix of them two, really. They're both up for it and both can do it and both good drivers. So it'll be
Interesting.
One of them, basically. Mainly because with 6 rounds to go, getting a full primary in probably isn't really worth it. And I know both of them could do a great job, even without sort of a proper amount of practice. So it'll be one or the other at Singapore. I think it should be Stephen at Singapore because he likes that track. So
Doing the 2015 Sauber, signing 3 drivers for 2 seats. Interesting. Anyway,
Yeah.
Thank you for speaking to us, Josh, and good luck in the future rounds.
Thank you very much.
Now, I promise this isn't supposed to be a Nova special. Although, interestingly, the only people who have been in the interview room when I've gone to drag them in have been Nova personnel. Here is George Whitehouse. George, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you, man?
Good. I'm okay, thanks. George, not a bad first FS2 race of the year. Couple of strong results. How are you feeling about that?
I think first and foremost, it's good to be back. I'm only filling in for the end of the season. I won't be there at Singapore, but it is good to be back. I did want the rain. The dry pace wasn't the best. I think I'd like to be a little bit quicker. But I was getting Josh the rain dance, and it worked out for me.
Indeed. Where did you finish in the end? I think you were 5th in race 2.
Yes. Yeah.
And you were right up there in race 1 as well. P4 in race 1, not bad at all. So 2 top 5 finishes there. Were you expecting to be quite this competitive here, or was it something that came out of the blue?
I mean, the thing is, because it's been 2020 since last time I did was Super Cup then, so I wasn't really, to be honest, I had literally no idea what I was going to be, if I'm completely honest. So to get 2 top 5s, I can't really complain. It could have always been better, but at the end of the day, it's good to be back. It's good to be racing and having fun.
You've improved a lot since your race for me at VIR. Eh?
Oh yeah. We don't talk about that.
Fair enough. Thank you very much for speaking to us, George, and congrats on your strong result.
Thank you.
Okay, now I know I said that was going to be the last interview, but Toby Davis has jumped in to the interview room, and I don't want this to just be a Nova special end to the stream. So I'm quickly going to bring in Toby Davis. Toby, you had a shot in a Super Cup car. Good stuff.
It wasn't good stuff, Caitlin. It was awful. I did 0 laps practice in the wet conditions, and thoroughly deserved my terrible results as a result. So, but I had a lot of fun, and thank you to Gallery 82 for giving me the chance last minute to drive for them. I appreciate it. Sorry I couldn't do more. It was not my finest night's driving, to be honest. Considering I'd done all right, in FS2 the other night. It was a shame not to be on the pace here in the wet, but one of those races, unfortunately.
That's true. It clearly didn't go particularly well, let's face it, but I hope you had some fun out there. Were you also keeping an eye on your other guys while you were doing it, or was it just kind of, no, I'm a driver today?
No, I was sort of engineering from the driving seat, which was very fun.
Wow.
but we did have Chris Butcher helping us out, so thank you to Chris. Appreciate that. And he was very good, so thanks, Chris. First time engineering, I believe, for us. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a nice time. I do have to apologize to Moritz Bracan in race 2. I tapped the back of him spanning round, and then he retired, so apologies to Morris. Not a great deal I could do in that one. But otherwise, I had a really nice time. Thank you, Caitlin. And thank you for your kind message earlier as well. Appreciate that too.
And just quickly before you go, great drive from Tommy. He's doing a great job.
He is. I think Tom is maturing race by race. He's just turned 18. And
he just turned 19. God, he's younger than I thought.
Yeah, he's just turned 18.
Wow.
So he's developing into, it's frightening actually how good he's going to be. So he's very good, and we're very grateful to have both him and Moritz, both of our 2 young superstars in the team. And they put in the hard work and do the laps and are really helpful, and they're both kind, and it's great to have them on board, and I couldn't wish for a better team right now. It's a fantastic team to be part of, THR Nocturne. So yes, very, very pleased with how Tom's doing, and obviously it's great that he's leading the championship.
Well, thank you very much for dropping in, Toby, and thank you for always being so positive in these interviews.
Thanks, Caitlin. Thank you.
So that was Toby Davis there, a driver today, and also team boss of the Nocturne team. And yes, I've just remembered it was Tom Stevens' birthday recently, and Owen McGorgy's, I think on the same day, which is ironic, of course, with those two being the top two in the championship. I guess they just have such a rivalry that they had to race each other to be born. I don't know. Owen was a few years earlier. Anyway, I'm waffling. Thank you all very much for watching this Formula Sprint 1 broadcast. This was a very entertaining day of racing with the weather and with the battles up and down the field. We are going to be back in 2 weeks' time at Singapore, the difficult streets of Singapore, for the longest Formula Sprint 1 races of the season, providing, of course, that... I'm waffling. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Thank you as well to Szymon Frelik, my broadcaster today, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time.